Hi, welcome to the Everything and Anything and a Bit Gay podcast. I'm really excited today to have Claire Dore on my show. Claire and I met on Facebook, I think, right in one of the chat rooms, and I was looking for guests, and she sent me an interesting story. So, welcome to the show, Claire.
Oh, thanks, Zach. I'm excited to be here.
So you have a very interesting story that I would love for my viewers or my listeners to hear. So you were in a 21-year-old marriage, and you said you were a conditioned woman. So tell me what conditioned woman means, and tell me why you got out of the 21-year marriage. Tell me your story.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, it's been one hell of a journey, is what I will
Yeah.
say. And yeah, what I mean by being a conditioned woman, and the thing is, I wasn't present to it. It's only on leaving that I recognized I had all this conditioning wrapped around my identity
Hmm.
that I was completely unconscious to. So when I say conditioned, it was almost like so an example of that is I thought I wanted the fairy tale, right?
Yep.
Conditioning had led me to believe that that's the path you follow.
Hmm.
So I had the fairy tale. I had, the beautiful house, amazing holidays, incredible husband, um, three amazing children, a dog. Um, on paper,
It
on
looked great.
it looked great, right? From the outside in, it was like, yeah, perfect life. And even people would say that to me, like, oh my gosh, like, you're the
Yeah.
most incredible couple. Like, we both, we looked great together.
Yeah.
Okay.
Was he a
And
good-looking guy too?
he's a really great looking guy, really great looking guy. And so, yeah, everyone from the outside in was observing this. And I think,
Okay.
when people say this to you, you start to really embody that and believe it, right? And then what I recognize is I was in that relationship, and I'd say it was like the last 9 years where I started to really feel like I wasn't truly happy. I
Okay.
was I was happy enough, right?
Okay.
And
Yep.
I was brought up in the generation where it's like you be grateful for everything.
Okay. Yeah.
Be grateful for everything. Like you're
Yeah.
really, really lucky to have all those things that you've got, right? And actually, what I've become aware of is actually all those things, all that material stuff was actually not important.
Okay. And tell me what made you kind of discover that? Like what over that course of 9 years, like what were some of the signs that you saw that like, oh, this I'm not really happy, or
Mm.
what was the final thing that said this is not for me anymore?
Yeah, great question. And I'd say I only really pinpointed that I wasn't happy for all that amount of time once I'd left. So
Okay.
I recognized that things weren't how I wanted them to be,
Mhm.
but, I'd made my vows, I'd walked down the aisle. The
Yeah.
intention was forever.
Yeah.
And, I have three children. So that was a huge piece that
Yeah.
was playing on me, going, they'll reject you. Like that was the biggest thing. And I hear this so much with the women, but also the men that I coach, is
Mhm.
like they don't want to leave because they fear the children will reject them.
Yep.
And this is even bigger, I recognize, for men than for women, this
Mhm.
piece. And so there was all of that fear was present, fear of the future, fear of the finances. So what I chose to do was invest in myself and, like really start to work on myself, my inner self, and put some effort in. But that wasn't enough. That wasn't enough. And it was only um what happened was I started to go through an awakening. That started in July 21 when I
Okay.
actually stepped into leading a retreat. It was my first ever retreat I'd led in my business. I always knew that was going to be transformational for the women, but I didn't quite realize that it would totally expand me.
That's
And
awesome.
yeah, right. It was wild. And all I can say is like, I walked back into my marriage feeling like a new woman, but feeling like me.
Okay.
And something shifted in that whole experience for me that caused me to really, yeah, embody truly who I was. And what I really saw in that moment was I'd conditioned myself to be a certain way,
Hmm.
to not ruffle feathers, to be a good mum,
Hmm.
and yeah, it's like I adopted all of these ways of being and these beliefs around how I needed to act being a mum, how I needed to act being a wife, and basically was pretty much putting myself on mute.
Now, when you went to this, when you had this first retreat and you were with these other women, was there a time that it just kind of clicked during that retreat where you're just like, okay, something's got to change in my life when I get back, when this is done, and something feels so right now, like you found who you were. Did you have that moment of inspiration?
It didn't come to me in that way. It's like there was a series of events that kind of happened. Definitely, there was a moment in the retreat where I was actually going through a breakthrough myself.
Okay.
So I had these like a mass release of tears and this breakthrough moment where I had essentially not, I wasn't really owning my worth. And I remember like this surge running through my body in that moment. And I can't, it's really hard to even find the words in the English language to describe what that felt
Hmm.
like. But it was from that moment, it was like something had unlocked inside me energetically. And the way I felt from that moment on was like, it was like someone had plugged me into an electric socket and I was
Yeah.
alive, right?
Yeah.
Alive. And I was, to go into a little bit of detail on this, I was very much a woman who never really felt turned on, to suddenly feeling, oh, oh my gosh, like this is what it feels like to feel turned on, like 24/7. And that's what a lot of people say when they go through an awakening
Yeah.
is actually all their sexual energy is basically brought into their whole body, because that is our energy that we create from,
Hmm.
right? Yes, it makes us feel like, really, really horny and all of that stuff, but actually
Hmm.
it's our creative, juicy energy that as an entrepreneur, we can express from them and use in our business to really create the content we want to create, to step up on those stages, whatever it is that we feel aligned to do. And so all of that energy was like buzzing through my body, and I just suddenly felt like this expanded version of me. I even remember voicing, um, that I felt 10 feet taller. I mean, that is how I
Wow.
felt. Right? It's really interesting. And
Yeah, that is so interesting.
Yeah,
And I've heard people that have done like I've interviewed someone that's done mushrooms, and a similar thing happened where they kind of awakened from that experience, and it was just like they're like, I was missing so much in my life and I didn't even realize it.
yeah,
And it just, I know it just, bam, like I'm now who I should be in some ways, is kind of what they were saying.
yeah, absolutely. And I think, what I recognized from that moment was, I went through this process and it was a very deep, deep process and it was fast. It was like, the thing is, once you feel that safety in the body, and this is very much the core of my work, once you feel that safety in your body and you're being who you are,
Hmm.
all your conditioning comes right up to the surface. And it was, I mean, this happened, this is still going on, like 3 years on. It's like on a daily basis, I have conditioned beliefs that just come right up to the surface because it's like they're no longer in alignment. So and this is really how healing works, and I don't like to use that word. I like to use that word loosely because we are always healing,
Yeah.
right? It's not a done thing, but it's like you when you're being fully who you are, like processing the stuff, it's like it just comes up and it wants to come out of the body and be freed so that you can, really, really own your authentic self. And that's really been my experience and journey through this.
Were you scared when this happened at all? Like, I mean, it sounds exciting, but at the same time, you knew that your life was going to take a shift, right? So, did that scare you, especially having three kids? Like you said, you had the perfect life on paper, and you had to come home. And did you know that you were going to have to make a change in your marriage, make a change in your life, or did that kind of come over time?
So that actually landed 3 weeks later, but there
Wow.
were a
Okay.
couple of, yeah. So I came home, and as soon as I stepped through that door, something had changed energetically, right? Because I changed.
Yeah.
And so it was like, and I don't say this from a place of blame, but I felt rejected, right?
Mhm.
Because yeah, I'd molded myself in the relationship. So suddenly I was stepping in as all as myself. And my ex-husband, I'm imagining, didn't recognize me in that moment.
Mhm. Did he
And
question you at all? Did he say, "What's going on with you?" or
oh
"What happened on
yeah,
this retreat?"
oh
Okay, yeah.
yeah, oh yeah, because from that moment, I was so in flow and so really tapped into myself and my body and my intuition. I was just really like doing some really incredible things, but I'm smiling because they're funny, like really funny things, because I was just like, oh, I fancy doing that. Oh, I'm going to do it, right? Like literally would
Yeah.
go in that kind of flow state. And I remember there was one moment where I'd gone to get my ears pierced, right? And it was just literally, I'd walked down to the post office. I came back with my ears pierced,
Oh, really? Okay.
right?
And when they were and what did your husband and kids say, like, "Mom, what are you doing?"
Well, exactly. Well, this was one of the moments where I remember him saying, like, who do you think you are? Like, why are you behaving like a teenager? And, he essentially just didn't recognize me because I was making decisions based on how I was feeling, right? Which is
Mhm.
all about being embodied, particularly as, well, as all human beings, like we need to feel more, and for a woman to be really leading from her core feminine energy, it's all about feeling state. So
Yeah.
I was suddenly making decisions based on feeling rather than logic. And yeah, I remember my kids just like giggling their heads off, and him just going like, who are you, kind of
Yeah.
thing. Like he didn't recognize me. And and then it was 3 weeks later, the words just fell out of my mouth. And I really believe in that moment, it was like my soul took over my body, because
Mhm.
I didn't step into a situation thinking, okay, I'm going to tell him that I want to leave. Like it wasn't, I think on a subconscious level, I knew that,
Yeah.
but it wasn't present to me. I was just in this like energy and just like going with the flow, and like, my business was really successful at that point. Like I was just attracting clients effortlessly. And so, yeah, it was really interesting to observe. And then we were actually on holiday, and the words "I'm leaving you" just fell out of my mouth, and then that was it. I couldn't put them back in, and it felt
And
so right.
was he shocked? Or did he think he felt maybe it was coming because of the last 3 weeks prior? You were getting your ears pierced, you were acting different, you had a different energy, it sounds like. You had
Yeah,
your real personality, it sounds like it came out.
exactly. Yeah, and people who knew me really well, who'd known me all my life, had kind of said, "Yeah, you've come home." You've come home to who you are.
Oh, that's such
And
a, it gave me goosebumps when you said that. It's like you found
oh,
yourself. That's so amazing.
yeah, exactly. And but yeah, I mean, I can't tell you how uncomfortable that experience was
Mhm.
when I actually told him. Like those words fell out. They were not going back in my mouth. I was not retracting. It felt I was so clear that was right. However, witnessing someone that I loved, that was
Yeah.
the father of my kids, go through the stages of grief right before my eyes dramatically broke my heart. I
Yeah.
can't, I'm not gonna,
I mean, you still
it
loved
was
him.
horrible.
Yeah.
Yeah, I still love him. He's always going to have a place in my heart,
Yeah.
right? He's a big part of my life, my story, my kid's father.
Hmm.
But it was, it wasn't to retract on my decision at all. Not for a second did I feel that was a right move for me.
Hmm.
But it was horrible to witness. It was really horrible.
And
Um,
and then what happened whenever you got back from your holiday with him, and after you've delivered this news to him, what was the next step? Were you like, I'm going to take a trip, I'm moving out, you're moving out? Like what was your next step, and did you want it to happen fast?
well, I think there was a sense that, once he'd come to terms that this was non-negotiable and this was happening,
Hmm.
obviously the conversations were, okay, well, what are we going to do in terms of living? And just to make things ultra complicated, but I think there's never a good time to be
Yeah.
leaving a relationship like this. We were building our dream home.
Oh, okay.
So we were right in the midst of that, which had been a 3-year project. And so we were in like a rental property, but building another house. And essentially, what happened was he moved into that house,
Okay.
and so we lived together. I think it was about 10 weeks before we actually then went into separate homes. That was one of the hardest 10 weeks of my life, for sure,
Yeah.
for sure. Um, and it's such a big journey, kind of going through a separation like that and divorce. You really get to see who you really are in those moments that are really challenging.
I'm sure. I mean, especially when you've spent that many years of your life with someone, and you've made three humans from this, with this person, and you've raised them
Mm,
and stuff. So it's like life changing, but you also have to be happy with yourself too, so I
yeah,
get it.
yeah, absolutely.
And tell me a little bit about how you're helping other women, because I took a look at your website. By the way, Claire's website is Claire, Claire, Dore, Dore.com. Take a look at her website. She does different kind of retreats, and she meets with individuals, she meets with couples. So take a look at it, because if you're going through something similar, or you feel like there's something similar, meet with Claire, have a talk with her, and see if she help counsel you and get you through. So tell me, like, how this impacted your business also.
Yeah, I've been an entrepreneur now for 15 years, and interestingly, what I recognize is as I evolve, like my business, of course, evolves alongside me because
Hmm.
I am my business. And so I was very much kind of working in the space of mindset, did a bit of embodiment kind of coaching and mentoring. But now my work is very much around embodiment. But I position myself as a dating and relationship coach.
Yep.
And yeah, like as I've navigated, these relationships and learned so much about myself, and found ways to navigate through, but also the dating scene as well. That's what I've become kind of known for and
Yeah.
an expert in. And, I write very openly about my experience and what I'm learning. So I very much kind of lead from a very conscious place and a place of authenticity with
So
my
tell me
clients.
about your dating life now. Like what's happened? And because I mean, whenever you got married, there were no apps, there was no online, there was none of that, right? So now it's a whole new world where you can go on 5 different apps and meet 5 different people in a day and stuff. So tell me about how you've adapted to this new technology in this new world, and I'd love to hear a story of a date, or good and bad.
Oh gosh, now which story would I choose? There's a lot. um, I've been dating for, it's probably just over 2.5 years actually. So I stepped
Okay.
into dating about 5 months after I left my marriage. And it's been an interesting journey, let's say, and um, massive amounts of healing for me. It got to help me see the parts of myself that I needed to kind of integrate and love more and heal. So much of our conditioning comes
Hmm.
up, our childhood wounds come up when we're dating.
Yep.
So, yes, I was very much dating on the apps. And actually, I have made a conscious decision to come off the apps because what I have noticed is how that was feeding a dopamine hit and taking
Mm.
energy from, putting into myself, putting into my business, putting into my kids. Um, so yeah, it's been a really interesting journey, and actually, I am a real advocate for supporting men and women in dating without the apps,
Yeah.
and really following, like connecting to yourself so you can follow your intuition, because I just believe that is how we are gonna meet our partners.
And what's a piece of advice you would give someone that, because I have several single friends. They are addicted to the apps. We're at dinner sometimes. I remember last summer there was 9 of us that went on a vacation together. I'm married, but some of them are single, and everybody that was single, all they were doing, they were not engaging in the conversation at the table. They were all on the dating apps, swiping left and right and messaging people. And I'm just like, hello, like we're here together. You're in New York, you're in Philly, you're in Dallas, we're in Massachusetts together. Like, why we don't see each other all the time? Like, why are you all on your phones? And you know what their answer was to me? Oh, even though you're married, just get on the app and just do it because it's fun. I'm like, I don't want to do that. Like, I've been in a, I have no desire to be in this circle, in this head space that you're in, where all you're thinking about constantly is the app and who's the next person I'm going to meet, whether it's for a hookup or it's a date or whatever it is. So
Mhm.
it was
I
just,
think, yeah, go on. Sorry.
no, I was just going to ask you. So, what's a piece of advice you could give someone to say, get off the apps and this is what you can do?
Yeah, and I think it is, there's nothing wrong with dating on an app. I think it's about being really conscious about your choices. And something that I learned, so I'll speak from my own experience here, is how the apps were making me feel.
Hmm.
And, even though I had good boundaries around the apps, like I wouldn't be sat there if I was like with my friends on an app or whatever. Or, if I'm working in my business, I would make sure all my notifications off, but they were taking thoughts. I would have a thought, oh, I wonder if that guy messaged me back,
Yeah.
right? So taking energy, and I think that's the perspective I would share, is just be really curious about where this is stealing your energy. And it's a bit, it's like social media as well, right?
Yeah.
We use social media in a way for connection, and I
Hmm.
think what's a really is a big oxymoron, really, is like how we go to our phones to connect when actually that's such a disconnection from ourselves.
Yeah.
So I think it's just about being really curious about your choices and how it makes you feel. And most often, we do things without actually thinking about it. on
Mhm.
autopilot, and oh, everyone's on the app, so better get on the apps.
Mhm.
Um, and when I'm working with my clients, they'll say, "Oh, I've gone on Bumble," and I'm like, "Why Bumble?" They don't even know why they've chosen the dating app, and it's like, "Oh, well, that one sounds all right," and it's like, how about choose based on what feels aligned with you, rather
Yeah.
than what we think? Oh, so and so's on it, so I'll get on that. And we do
Um,
so much automatically, right?
Whenever you started dating people, was it people that were different than your husband, completely different type of person, or kind of what changed?
Yeah, very different, I'd say. Well, it's very interesting. There seems to be this big trend, which I really challenge a lot when this shows up now. But I recognize that a lot of younger guys like an older woman. And I think some of that is like feeding a fantasy, you know,
Uh-huh.
feeding a fantasy. I think there's also an element of not doing their own inner work, right? Because I say, why is it you're attracted to an older woman? Like, I'll ask them really clearly. Well, because you know what you want and there's no drama and you're confident. And it's like, right. What? Maybe there's something in you that maybe you need to look at,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because they obviously have this belief around younger women, they're going to be full of drama and all the things. So yeah, I definitely played to that and had a little bit of fun with some
Yeah.
younger guys. I'm not going to lie, and I think being suddenly single after so long, it was fun. It
Yeah.
was fun, right? It was fun. I enjoyed the attention, and so yeah, some of the guys. I mean, I've actually dated some really amazing guys, I have to say,
Yeah.
and lots of very successful guys. And my ex was very successful in his work, and so I say, on that level, that was the same. But my ex was older than me, whereas I tended to date guys who were younger than me.
Yeah.
So that was different.
Um, I have a my friend group. Most of them that are in relationships are now in open relationships. They've opened the relationship where it's always been open for some cases. And I have, a really good friend. Him and his partner are slowly opening up their relationship. And I had another good friend that I'm seeing this weekend where him and his partner, after 6 years, opened up their relationship and they ended up ending it after 5 or 6 months because it just went too far. Like one was on the app going out and meeting somebody, on a Tuesday night, and then the other one was sitting there cooking dinner. He's like, "Wait, are we a couple anymore, or like what's happening?" So, do you see that a lot where people are starting to open up their relationships, and what is your thoughts on that?
I have a very interesting perspective on that actually, because yes, I see this a lot and I will always challenge it because I have a perspective that for some people, not all, I've met some incredible, I've got some really good friends who are in open marriages and they've really put a lot of work into it. And this has been a conscious
Hmm.
choice for them and it works really well. However, what I have also seen is because it's trendy, there's just been this almost like, oh, we're going to open it up. And I question that sometimes that is being done because there's something about the intimacy that isn't being created within the relationship that
I
they're
agree.
running away from. So
Hmm.
that's what I have seen a lot of, and I was actually coaching a guy not long ago who displayed this to me, and I said to him, like, why are you opening it up? And what I have also noticed in male female dynamic, it tends to be the man opening it up,
Hmm.
and the woman generally is not quite on board.
Yep.
Um, yeah, and yeah, it's all to do with the depth of intimacy. And the thing is, if a woman is not emotionally safe in a relationship, and that is, she needs to feel safe. the man creates that safety for her,
Yeah.
then she's not going to be wanting to have sex. Like that is so key for a woman.
Yeah. Yeah. That's I agree with you. And I could see where whether it's, it's like you, like for your example, where the man usually wants it and the woman will go along with it, but she just wants to make him happy, probably. She's just trying to keep the marriage going, or whatever, make her husband happy, which is, sad. I think that, she's not being forced to do it, obviously, but it's not what she wants, it sounds like.
There'll be a deeper thing underneath, which is a fear of rejection.
Yeah.
So she'll say yes because she doesn't want to be left on her own. Like we all
Yeah.
fear abandonment, right? We
Yeah.
all
Yeah.
have that wound, and it's just being conscious of that. And yeah.
Do you think more people are seeking kind of couple therapy, or a couple, just getting a coach for like what you're doing? Is that becoming more common because it's such a complex world now?
I am absolutely seeing more of that. And I think it's interesting. I was talking to someone the other day about how the US has always been ahead of us than the UK in terms of like seeking therapy. And I think that, that's changed over the years for
Yeah.
sure. And I don't just coach people in the UK, but I do, yeah, I am starting to see that people are going to couples therapy, and that's good because ultimately we don't want to break up, right?
Yeah.
I don't, often like individuals or couples will come to me because they want to break up, but actually through coaching, they deepen the intimacy. And I
Awesome.
think anyone who's in this kind of field and doing this work, like that is the goal, like that is the
Hmm.
intention, is to actually, keep the couples together and see whether they can work through that, um, or support them in conscious uncoupling.
I have two more questions before we end. First, do you think that you will ever get married again?
This question. Oh, and I've got all giggly and girly, so that'll be a yes then.
That would be a yes.
I
Okay.
It's a desire, Zach, I'd say.
It is.
There is a wedding dress shop, really gorgeous wedding dress shop, literally a few doors from where I live. And I walk past there, I don't know how many times a day, in a week or whatever, and I literally always stare in. Like there is a desire there for sure. Mm.
Awesome. And my last question is do you think you're the happiest you've ever been in your life? Because you seem so happy.
I've learned that all the things that I thought made me happy are not the things. And I've, don't get me wrong, it's been uncomfortable in times, but
Hmm.
that is how we allow ourselves to be fully alive. And I think the biggest thing is I've learned the things that really mean the most to me. And
Okay.
it's not about the stuff. It's not about the big house. It's not about the flashy car. It's about the rich connections and relationships and experiences. And all those things light me up on a daily basis. And that doesn't mean I'm traveling the world every day. Just, skipping down the road like that just
Yeah. But you have a
means
good
so much.
energy about yourself,
Thank
though.
you.
Like you have a really good energy, and I'm all about a good energy, and I can just feel it though, from you. So, thank you so much for being on. Again, go visit Claire's website. It's Claire, CLAIREDORE.com. Also, follow her on Instagram, the Wild Woman CEO on Instagram. Follow her, send her a message. Reach out to her if you're looking for some guidance or help, and I think she would be a perfect person to help you. So, thank you so much, Claire, for being on. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Zach. I've loved chatting.